My name is Mia Turner, 38 years old, and I have lived with crushing regret for over 3 years now. In one moment of uncontrollable rage, I said the most horrible things a mother could ever say to her child. I told my 16-year-old daughter I hated her, that I regretted not aborting her, that she had ruined my life. The look in her eyes still haunts me every night. Before I share my painful story, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe if you want to hear more real-life confessions. Life has a way of sneaking up on you. One minute, you think you have everything under control, and the next, you are watching your world crumble right before your eyes. That was my story. A single mother working 2 jobs, trying to make ends meet while raising a teenage daughter on my own. Before everything fell apart, Sophia and I had what I thought was an unbreakable bond. From the moment she was born with her tiny fingers wrapping around mine in the hospital, I promised her the world. We were a team. During her early years, we would spend Sunday mornings making pancakes together, flour dusting our noses as we laughed. I would braid her hair before school while she told me about her dreams of becoming an artist. Those were simple times filled with love despite our limited resources. Things changed when James, my ex-husband, and Sophia's father walked out on us when she was 10. He claimed he needed to find himself, but what he really found was a younger woman and a new life in California. The child support checks came irregularly at first, then stopped altogether. His absence left both financial and emotional scars that I struggled to heal. I should mention that I never had the best role models for handling emotions. Growing up, my own mother would swing between cold silence and explosive anger. When I was 8, she broke all my toys during a fight with my father, then pretended nothing happened the next day. I promised myself I would be different with Sophia, but trauma has a way of hiding in your bones, emerging when you least expect it. Despite these challenges, I tried my best. Our apartment was small, but always clean. There were times I skipped meals so Sophia could have new shoes or art supplies. I worked as an administrative assistant during the day and waitressed 3 nights a week. The exhaustion was constant, but seeing Sophia thrive made it worthwhile. Her talent for art blossomed in middle school, and teachers began talking about special programs and her potential future in the field. Then Derek entered our lives. I met him at the restaurant where I worked. He was charming, stable, with a good job in sales. After being alone for years, his attention felt like coming in from the cold. He would bring small gifts for Sophia, ask about her art, and seemed genuinely interested in becoming part of our family. For the first time since James left, I allowed myself to hope for a partner, someone to share the burden. Around the same time, Sophia began changing. The sweet girl who used to share everything with me started locking her bedroom door. Normal teenage stuff, I told myself. She would roll her eyes when I asked about school, sigh dramatically when asked to do chores. I remembered being 14 and fighting with my own mother, so I tried to be patient. Work became increasingly stressful too. The company was downsizing and my position felt precarious. My manager kept piling on extra responsibilities without additional compensation, hinting that I should be grateful to have a job at all. Every month, paying rent became more difficult. The constant fear of eviction kept me awake at night. Throughout all of this, Sophia maintained her academic excellence and dedication to art. She talked constantly about Carnegie Mellon University's prestigious art program. I would smile encouragingly while inwardly panicking about the cost. How could I tell my brilliant daughter that her dreams were beyond our financial reality? As Sophia focused on her future, I couldn't help but reflect on my own abandoned ambitions. I had once dreamed of becoming a nurse, but pregnancy and early marriage derailed those plans. Sometimes, watching Sophia sketch for hours, a bitter thought would creep in. When would it be my turn? I would immediately feel guilty for such thoughts, but they persisted. Derek became an unexpected wedge between us. He would make subtle comments about how disrespectful Sophia was, how teenagers needed firmer boundaries. At first, I defended her, but slowly his perspective began to influence mine. He suggested I was too soft, that Sophia was manipulating me with her attitude. After particularly difficult days, his words made a twisted kind of sense. Sophia could sense my shifting allegiance. She became more withdrawn, spending increasing amounts of time at friends' houses. When she was home, our conversations became minefields of misunderstandings and hurt feelings. The more I tried to connect, the further she pulled away. My mental health began deteriorating under the pressure. Insomnia became my nightly companion, and anxiety followed me throughout the day. I considered therapy, but our insurance was minimal and we simply couldn't afford the expense. Instead, I pushed through, telling myself that strong mothers don't break down. Our small 2-bedroom apartment, once cozy, now felt claustrophobic with teenage emotions bouncing off the walls. Sophia's art supplies invaded every surface. Her half-finished projects, once sources of pride, became symbols of the chaos I couldn't control. I would find myself staring at paint-stained countertops, fighting irrational anger at the mess. The financial pressure continued mounting. Art supplies weren't cheap, and Sophia needed professional-grade materials for her portfolio development. College application fees added up quickly. Every credit card was maxed out, and I had already borrowed money from what few friends remained willing to help. I tried to maintain a brave face, but inside, I was drowning. Every smile felt like a lie, every encouraging word to Sophia, an act of hypocrisy. I was failing at everything: work, motherhood, building a relationship with Derek, and most of all, at keeping my own emotions in check. The dam was bound to break eventually. I just never imagined how devastating the flood would be. The promotion I had been promised for 6 months fell through on a rainy Tuesday. My manager avoided eye contact as he explained they had brought in someone from outside with more experience. The same day, I received another past due notice for our electricity bill. The timing couldn't have been worse. That evening, Derek suggested we move our relationship to the next level by moving in together. My initial relief was quickly dampened when he casually mentioned that his condo wasn't really suitable for teenagers. Perhaps Sophia could stay with her father. When I reminded him that James was completely out of the picture, he shrugged and said we would figure something out, but his meaning was clear. Sophia was not part of his vision for our future. I didn't end things with him immediately, which is something I will always regret. Instead, I let the suggestion simmer between us, neither accepting nor rejecting it. This indecision on my part created a subtle shift in our household dynamic. Sophia, perceptive as always, seemed to sense my emotional conflict and responded by pushing boundaries even further. She began staying out later with friends, coming home just before her curfew with vague explanations about where she had been. Her once open demeanor became guarded, her answers to my questions increasingly clipped. I would hear her laughing on the phone with friends only to fall silent when I entered the room. The school called one afternoon while I was at work. Sophia had missed 3 classes that week. When confronted, she claimed she was attending extra art sessions with a mentor, producing a permission slip with a forged signature that looked disturbingly like my own. It was the first time she had ever directly lied to me, and the betrayal stung deeply. The next morning, during a heated exchange about her deception, Sophia accidentally knocked over a crystal vase, one of the few nice things I had inherited from my grandmother. As it shattered across the kitchen floor, something inside me cracked as well. I screamed at her for the first time in years, my voice unrecognizable even to myself. She ran to her room, slamming the door so hard, a family photo fell from the wall, the glass cracking across my smiling face in the image. Bills continued to pile up on the kitchen counter. Final notices in aggressive red font demanded immediate payment. I began hiding them in a drawer as if not seeing them might make them disappear. When the apartment complex manager left a note about late rent, I avoided the building office, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, to reduce the chance of an encounter. Derek's patience was wearing thin. After another argument about Sophia, he delivered an ultimatum over dinner at his place. If I wanted our relationship to work, something had to change with my parenting approach. He used words like boundaries and discipline, describing Sophia as manipulative and spoiled. When I weakly defended her, he sighed and said I would need to decide what was more important, our future together or enabling my daughter's behavior. I began relying on wine to make it through the evenings. 1 glass with dinner became 2, then 3. The temporary numbness it provided seemed worth the morning headaches. I told myself it was just a phase, a coping mechanism until things settled down. Deep down, I recognized the dangerous pattern, having watched my own mother self-medicate in similar ways. The school counselor called next. Sophia's grades were slipping across all subjects, not just 1 or 2. From straight A's to C's and D's in a matter of weeks. The counselor suggested stress at home might be a factor and recommended family counseling. I thanked her and promised to look into options, knowing full well we couldn't afford professional help. Going through Sophia's backpack while she was in the shower one evening, I found crumpled papers with failing grades hidden at the bottom. This wasn't like her at all. My concern deepening, I made the questionable decision to check her phone while she slept. The messages I found sent a chill through me. Conversations about parties with older kids, casual mentions of alcohol, and worse discussions about someone bringing pills to an upcoming weekend gathering. Who was this child? Certainly not the daughter I thought I knew. When I tried to talk to her about what I had found, Sophia exploded with anger over my invasion of privacy. Any attempt at reasonable conversation was met with slammed doors and stony silence. The harder I pushed, the more she withdrew. We were locked in a toxic cycle, each interaction more damaging than the last. The final straw came on an ordinary Wednesday. I had just received notice that my hours at the restaurant were being cut due to slow business. That same morning, Sophia casually mentioned needing $500 for an upcoming school art trip to New York. The amount might as well have been $5 million for all our ability to afford it. Anxiety attacks became more frequent. I would find myself in the bathroom at work struggling to breathe, convinced I was having a heart attack. Sleep became an elusive luxury. I would lie awake until the early hours calculating and recalculating our expenses, trying to find money that simply wasn't there. My own mother, never one to offer practical help, called regularly to criticize my parenting. She had always been quick with judgment and slow with support. According to her, Sophia's behavior was entirely my fault for being too permissive. Her calls inevitably left me feeling even more inadequate than before. Isolation wrapped around me like a shroud. Friends had slowly drifted away as I declined invitation after invitation due to work or lack of money. The parents of Sophia's friends seemed to exist in a different universe of comfortable finances and stable marriages. I had no peers who understood the crushing weight of being everything to someone while feeling like nothing yourself. By the time the night of our explosive argument arrived, I was a shell of myself, exhausted, depressed, financially broken, and emotionally bankrupt. The perfect storm had been brewing for months. All it needed was a spark to ignite the devastation. The evening that changed everything began unremarkably. It was a Thursday in April, unseasonably warm. I had just finished a double shift covering for a sick coworker, my feet throbbing in cheap work shoes. The apartment was empty when I got home, though Sophia had promised to be there to discuss her recent absences from school. I waited, checking my phone every few minutes, sending increasingly urgent text messages that showed as delivered but remained unread. By 9 o'clock, my worry had morphed into anger. By 10, when she finally walked through the door, I was seething with a volatile mixture of relief and rage. Sophia breezed in as if nothing was wrong, her hair slightly disheveled, smelling faintly of cigarette smoke. Before I could begin the lecture forming on my lips, she thrust an envelope into my hands, her face alight with excitement. Carnegie Mellon University, the return address read. With trembling fingers, she pulled out the letter herself when I didn't move quickly enough. She had been accepted to their prestigious summer art program, a precursor to potential admission to their undergraduate program. It was her dream coming true right before her eyes. For a moment, I felt pure joy for her. My talented, brilliant daughter being recognized for her gifts. Then reality came crashing back as she continued talking, explaining the tuition costs, housing fees, art supply requirements. $20,000 minimum. She might as well have asked for the moon. I tried to approach it reasonably. Sitting her down at our small kitchen table, I gently explained our financial situation. The overdue rent, the maxed-out credit cards, my reduced hours at work. Surely she could understand that while her achievement was incredible, the timing made it impossible. Her face fell immediately, joy replaced by accusation. This was just an excuse, she claimed. I never supported her art, never believed in her talent. She had heard me telling Derek once that art wasn't a practical career choice. I had betrayed her by pretending to encourage her while secretly hoping she would choose something sensible like accounting or nursing. I defended myself, explaining that supporting her dreams didn't mean I could magically produce money we didn't have. The conversation quickly escalated, voices rising as years of unspoken resentments surfaced on both sides. "You never have money for what I need," she shouted, "but you have money for wine and for dinners with Derek. You have no idea the sacrifices I've made for you," I countered. During this exchange, my phone kept buzzing. Derek sending message after message asking when I would be coming over, as we had planned. His timing and impatience added fuel to my already blazing anger. Then Sophia delivered the blow that broke my last thread of control. "You're just like Dad," she spat, "making promises you never keep." At least he had the decency to leave completely instead of pretending to care. Something snapped inside me. All the years of struggle, sacrifice, loneliness, and fear converged into a white-hot moment of pure, unfiltered rage. The words left my mouth before I could stop them, vicious and deliberately cruel. "You want to know the truth," I screamed. "Sometimes I hate being your mother. There are days I regret not getting an abortion when I had the chance. My life would have been so much easier without you. Everything I've given up, every dream I've abandoned, was because of you. You ruined my life the day you were born." The instant the words left my mouth, I wanted to grab them from the air, stuff them back inside, swallow them forever. But words once spoken cannot be unspoken. They hung between us like poison gas, toxic and suffocating. Sophia's face transformed before my eyes. I watched as shock registered, first her eyes widening, mouth slightly open. Then came the hurt, deep and primal, her lower lip trembling as if she were 5 years old again. Finally, something hardened in her expression, a calcification of something essential and precious. In that moment, I saw her childhood end completely. Neither of us spoke for what felt like eternity. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. I reached toward her, her name a whisper on my lips, but she stepped back as if my touch might burn her. Without a word, she walked to her bedroom. I followed, watching helplessly as she pulled a duffel bag from her closet and began methodically packing clothes, toiletries, her sketchbook. Her movements were mechanical, her face completely void of emotion. I begged her to stop, to talk to me, apologized over and over, claiming I didn't mean it, that I was just tired and frustrated. The words had no impact. It was as if she couldn't hear me at all, or worse, as if my voice had become meaningless noise. When she zipped the bag closed and turned toward the door, I placed myself in her path, not touching her, but blocking the way. "Please, Sophia. Please don't leave like this. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I said those things. I don't mean them. I've never meant them. Please." For the first time since my outburst, she looked directly at me. The emptiness in her eyes was worse than any anger or hatred could have been. Without emotion, she simply said, "Move." I stepped aside, my legs no longer able to support my weight. I collapsed onto her bed as she walked out of the room, out of the apartment, out of my life. The door closed with a soft click that somehow hurt more than if she had slammed it. Alone in the sudden silence of our apartment, the magnitude of what I had done crashed over me in waves. I curled into a ball on her bed, surrounded by the remnants of her childhood. The stuffed animals she hadn't taken, the glow and the dark stars still stuck to her ceiling. The framed drawing she had made of the two of us holding hands when she was 7. I had done the unforgivable. I had taken the sacred trust between mother and child and shattered it completely. In a moment of selfish rage, I had confirmed her deepest fears and insecurities. No amount of apology could undo the damage of those words. That night was the longest of my life. Every creak of the building made me hope she had returned. Every car passing outside sent me rushing to the window. I called her phone repeatedly, each call going straight to voicemail until eventually the phone was turned off completely. By morning, exhausted and hollow, I understood something terrible. There are some bells that cannot be unrung, some wounds that forever change the landscape of a relationship. I had inflicted just such a wound on my child, and now we would both have to live with the consequences. The first 48 hours after Sophia left were a blur of panic and desperate attempts to reach her. I called every friend of hers whose number I had left voicemails that alternated between tearful pleas and stern demands that she call me back. Most parents didn't return my calls. Those who did were coldly polite, assuring me that they hadn't seen Sophia, while something in their tone suggested they wouldn't tell me if they had. Finally, on the third day, Amanda Wilson, the mother of Sophia's best friend Zoe, called me. Sophia was staying with them, she confirmed, and was physically safe. But she was adamant about not wanting to speak to me. Amanda's voice was carefully neutral, but I could hear the unasked questions. What kind of mother would say such things to her child? Sophia had obviously told them what happened. The shame was overwhelming. These were parents I had interacted with at school functions, people who had seemed so put together compared to my chaotic single motherhood. Now they knew the ugliest part of me, the failure I had tried so hard to hide. I thanked Amanda woodenly for letting me know Sophia was safe, unable to ask the questions burning inside me. Is she eating? Sleeping, crying? Does she hate me completely? Derek's reaction was the final betrayal. I had called him immediately after Sophia left, needing anyone to help me through the crisis. His initial sympathy lasted about 5 minutes before transforming into something closer to satisfaction. Maybe this was for the best, he suggested. Now we could focus on our relationship without teenage drama. When I recoiled in horror, he became defensive. You've said similar things to me in private, he reminded me. You've complained about how she limits your life. I ended things with him that night, finally seeing clearly how his influence had helped poison my relationship with my daughter. He had been slowly driving a wedge between us for months, and I had allowed it, even participated. His true character revealed he didn't take the breakup well, calling me ungrateful and emotionally unstable. The names he called me only confirmed I had been blind to his true nature. With Derek gone and Sophia refusing contact, isolation became complete. Friends I reached out to were suddenly busy or took days to respond. Word had spread about what happened. In a small community, news like this travels fast, especially when it involves a well-liked teenager and a mother who said the unthinkable. Depression settled over me like a heavy blanket. Getting out of bed each morning required monumental effort. After nearly collapsing at work, I took medical leave using the last of my sick days. The apartment, once too small for 2 people, now echoed with emptiness. I would find myself standing in Sophia's doorway, staring at her half-empty room, the missing pieces like physical representations of the hole in my heart. Everywhere I looked were reminders of my daughter. The refrigerator still held her favorite yogurt. Her shampoo still sat in the shower caddy. But most painful were the art pieces she had left behind. Drawings from elementary school I had proudly displayed. More recent sketches she had discarded as not good enough. Each pencil stroke a testament to her talent, each abandoned work a reminder of my failure to nurture both her gift and her heart. About 2 weeks after she left, I received formal notification that Sophia had moved in with the Wilsons permanently. Amanda had helped her file paperwork for temporary guardianship citing emotional abuse. They weren't pursuing legal action against me, the letter explained, as long as I didn't contest the arrangement. Sophia would finish the school year with them, and they would ensure she had everything she needed. The clinical language of the letter broke something fundamental inside me. This wasn't a teenage tantrum or temporary rebellion. My daughter had legally removed herself from my care with the help of adults who believed she needed protection from me. From her mother. The person who should have been her ultimate safety. The school counselor called to check on me, her tone professional but concerned. She explained that Sophia was receiving therapy through the school, that her grades had stabilized, that she seemed to be coping remarkably well given the circumstances. When I asked if Sophia had mentioned me at all, the pause before her negative response told me everything I needed to know. I began writing Sophia letters, not emails or texts that could be easily deleted, but actual handwritten letters expressing my remorse, my love, my willingness to do whatever necessary to repair what I had broken. I poured my heart onto paper, explaining without excusing, apologizing without expectation of forgiveness. I gave the letters to Amanda to pass along, having no idea if Sophia ever read them or immediately threw them away. As weeks turned into months with no response, I was forced to confront the possibility that our relationship might be permanently severed. The child I had carried inside me for 9 months, nursed at my breast, taught to walk and talk and read, might forever be lost to me because of words spoken in a moment of unforgivable cruelty. This realization brought me to my knees, literally. I found myself on the bathroom floor one night, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe, clawing at my own skin, as if I could tear out the part of me that had hurt my child so deeply. For the first time, I understood my mother's capacity for cruelty in a new light. Not as justification, but as the terrible inheritance it was passed down through generations, like a genetic disease. The first holidays without Sophia nearly destroyed me. I set a place for her at Thanksgiving dinner out of habit, then sat alone at the table, unable to eat, staring at the empty chair across from me. Christmas was worse. I bought presents she would never open, wrapped them carefully, and placed them under a tree she would never see. On Christmas morning, I called her number, knowing she wouldn't answer, just to hear her voicemail greeting and the sound of her voice. These were the darkest days when I understood completely how people could give up on life entirely. The only thing that kept me going was the microscopic hope that someday, somehow, Sophia might be willing to hear my apology in person. That hope, thin as a thread, but strong as steel, became my lifeline in an ocean of regret. 6 months after Sophia left, I found myself sitting in my car outside our apartment complex, seriously considering driving away and never coming back. Starting fresh somewhere else, where no one knew me as the mother who told her daughter she wished she had never been born. The temptation to escape the pain and shame was nearly overwhelming. As I sat there contemplating this coward's exit, my phone buzzed with a calendar notification. A reminder that today would have been the day we visited the Carnegie Mellon campus together, a trip we had tentatively planned before everything fell apart. Curious about what might have been, I opened my glove compartment and found a folder of Sophia's artwork I had collected for her portfolio. Pieces she had discarded, but that I had saved, seeing beauty where she saw only flaws. Looking at her art, the raw emotion and talent evident in every stroke, something shifted inside me. Running away would be the ultimate confirmation of every terrible thing I had said. It would prove that when things got difficult, I abandoned those I claimed to love, just like her father had. That moment in the car became my rock bottom and my turning point. I made 2 phone calls that changed everything. The first was to a therapist whose number I had carried in my wallet for weeks. The second was to enroll in a parenting support group specifically for estranged parents. The therapist, Dr. Linda Marshall, didn't offer easy comfort or quick solutions. Instead, she helped me excavate the roots of my emotional dysregulation. We explored my childhood with my volatile mother, the abandonment by Sophia's father, the pattern of choosing partners who reinforced my worst tendencies. For the first time, I began to understand the triggers that led to my explosion that night. This wasn't about excusing my behavior, Dr. Marshall emphasized repeatedly. Understanding the why didn't erase the what. But without addressing the underlying issues, any reconciliation with Sophia would eventually crumble when the same patterns emerged again. After several sessions, I received diagnoses that simultaneously devastated and relieved me. Anxiety disorder, depression, possible PTSD from childhood emotional abuse. The labels gave shape to the formless dread I had carried my entire life. Medication was prescribed, cognitive behavioral therapy techniques taught. Slowly, I began to recognize the early warning signs of emotional flooding and learned techniques to ground myself before eruption. The support group proved equally transformative. Meeting other parents who had said or done things they deeply regretted helped alleviate the isolating belief that I was uniquely monstrous. One woman in particular, Angela, became something of a mentor. Her story paralleled mine in many ways, including horrific things said to her son during a mental health crisis. 3 years estranged, they had recently begun carefully rebuilding their relationship. What struck me most about Angela wasn't her success story, but her absolute commitment to respecting her son's timeline for healing. If reconciliation never happened, she told the group she would still continue her own growth because becoming a healthier person was valuable regardless of the outcome with her child. The concept of taking responsibility without excuses became my mantra. Yes, I had been under enormous pressure. Yes, I had undiagnosed mental health issues. Yes, I had been manipulated by Derek and abandoned by James. But none of that changed the fact that I alone had spoken those unforgivable words to my daughter. Accepting this complete responsibility was paradoxically freeing. It meant I couldn't blame anyone else, but it also meant I had the power to change. I began keeping a journal addressed to Sophia that I didn't intend to send. In it, I documented my therapy journey, my realizations, my ongoing love for her. Sometimes I wrote about mundane things like a movie I thought she would enjoy, or a new art exhibit at the local gallery. Writing to her, even knowing she would never read the words, kept her present in my daily life. Around this time, I made the difficult decision to respect Sophia's silence completely. No more letters or attempts at contact. The therapist helped me see that my persistent reaching out, while motivated by love and regret, might actually be another form of selfishness. Each attempt forced Sophia to relive the trauma and make a fresh decision to maintain her boundaries. True respect meant accepting that she might need years of space or perhaps a lifetime. This realization was brutal but necessary. It required me to confront my identity beyond motherhood. Who was Mia without being Sophia's mother? It was a question I had never really asked myself, having become pregnant at 19 and defined myself primarily as a mother ever since. The therapeutic work also forced me to examine my enabling relationship with Derek. How easily I had allowed him to criticize Sophia. How readily I had accepted his framing of normal teenage behavior as manipulation. How dependent I had become on his approval and support, even at the cost of my relationship with my daughter. This pattern of seeking validation from partners at my child's expense had to end if I ever hoped to be worthy of Sophia's trust again. Alongside therapy, I made the decision to get completely sober. My relationship with alcohol had never progressed to what most would consider alcoholism, but I recognized how I used it to numb emotions I didn't want to feel. Sobriety meant facing each day with clarity, no matter how painful. It meant developing healthier coping mechanisms for stress and disappointment. It meant becoming a person my daughter might someday be willing to know again. With the foundation of therapy and support in place, I began rebuilding my life piece by careful piece. The process wasn't about erasing the past or pretending the rupture with Sophia hadn't happened. Rather, it was about creating a new reality that acknowledged the painful truth while making space for possible healing. My medical leave had extended into an official resignation from my administrative job. While initially terrifying, this forced career reset turned into an unexpected opportunity. A former colleague recommended me for a position at a nonprofit arts organization. The pay was slightly better, the hours more regular, and the environment less toxic than my previous workplace. The irony wasn't lost on me that I found myself working adjacent to the art world my daughter loved, learning to appreciate her passion from a new perspective. Financial stability remained elusive, but improved enough that I could move to a smaller, more affordable one-bedroom apartment. The downsizing was practical, but emotionally significant. I had to sort through Sophia's remaining belongings, deciding what to keep and what to put into storage. Despite the smaller space, I set up the living room alcove as a bedroom for her, complete with a new desk, perfect for drawing. I didn't know if she would ever use it, but creating the space was an act of hope and commitment. 6 months of consistent therapy began showing tangible results. The panic attacks became less frequent, the depression lifting enough that getting out of bed no longer required heroic effort. I learned to recognize my emotional triggers and developed coping strategies to manage them. Simple techniques like deep breathing and thought stopping became automatic responses to rising anger. Medication helped smooth the jagged edges of anxiety that had previously driven me to lash out or withdraw. Alongside professional help, I sought to educate myself about Sophia's passion. I joined a community art class, not with any delusion of talent, but to understand the terminology, techniques, and challenges of visual expression. Holding a charcoal pencil, struggling to capture the basic contours of a still life, I gained new respect for my daughter's natural ability and dedicated practice. The instructor, noting my earnest if awkward efforts, recommended books on art appreciation that helped me see Sophia's work with more educated eyes. After 8 months of complete separation, the first indirect contact came through Zoe, Sophia's best friend. She appeared at my door one Saturday morning, explaining in a carefully neutral tone that Sophia needed more of her clothes and art supplies. Could she come in and pack some things? I invited her in, offering to help, but understanding when she politely declined. As she moved around Sophia's room selecting items, I asked gentle, non-invasive questions. How was Sophia doing in school? Was she still drawing? Zoe's answers were brief but not unkind. Sophia was doing better. Yes, she was still creating art more intensely than ever. The Wilson family was good to her. She seemed stable. As Zoe prepared to leave with 2 full duffel bags, I handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter I had written with my therapist's guidance, different from my earlier desperate pleas. This one acknowledged the hurt I had caused, without burdening Sophia with my own pain. It expressed unconditional love without expectation of response. Most importantly, it explicitly stated that I respected her need for space and would not contact her again unless she indicated she was ready. Zoe took the envelope with a small nod, making no promises about whether Sophia would read it. Before she left, She hesitated at the door. She's using a new technique with watercolors, she offered unexpectedly. Creating these abstract emotional landscapes. They're really good. That tiny crumb of information sustained me for weeks. My daughter was still creating. Despite the trauma I had inflicted, her artistic spirit remained intact, perhaps even strengthened by adversity. I clung to this knowledge on the darkest days. My therapist suggested that if reconciliation ever became possible, family therapy would be essential. With this in mind, I researched therapists specializing in parent-child reconciliation, setting aside a small amount from each paycheck to build a fund for this purpose. It was another act of hope, practical preparation for a future that might never materialize, but that I refused to stop believing in. During this period, I also established firmer boundaries with my own mother. Her calls still featured criticism of my parenting, now expanded to include how I was handling the estrangement, all wrong. After one particularly hurtful conversation, I clearly stated that unless she could speak to me with basic respect, I would need to limit our contact. Her stunned silence was followed by accusations of abandonment, ironically similar to those I had felt when Sophia left. The parallel wasn't lost on me. Breaking generational patterns required standing firm against the very behaviors I was working to eliminate in myself. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday evening, 8 months after she left, an email appeared in my inbox from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was blank. The message contained only 5 words: "I got your letter. Need time. Sophia." I knew instantly it was her, though she had created a new email address, one I wouldn't recognize. My hands shook so badly I had to put the phone down before I could finish reading the brief message. 5 words. 5 precious words that represented the first direct communication in 8 months. Every instinct screamed to respond immediately, to pour out my heart again, to beg for more contact. Dr. Marshall had prepared me for this moment, however. Respecting Sophia meant truly honoring her request for time. After an hour of composing and deleting draft responses, I sent only, "I understand. I'm here if you're ready. All my love. Mom." Then I turned off my phone to prevent myself from sending anything else, went to the bathroom, and cried for an hour straight. Not from sadness this time, but from the cautious bloom of hope. She had read my letter. She had reached out, however briefly. The door that I thought permanently closed had opened a crack, allowing in the thinnest ray of light. 2 weeks later, Sophia's 17th birthday arrived. In previous years, I would have decorated the apartment, prepared her favorite breakfast, planned a special outing. This year, after careful consideration, I sent a simple package to the Wilsons' address. It contained a professional set of watercolors selected with advice from my art instructor and a card with a short message: "Happy birthday. Proud of the artist and person you are. Love always, Mom." No guilt, no references to our situation, no pressure for response. 3 days later, a text message appeared on my phone. "Thanks for the watercolors. They're good quality. 2 texts in 1 month. Progress so incremental it would seem meaningless to anyone else. To me, each word was precious evidence that complete estrangement might not be our permanent reality. Sophia was establishing contact on her terms in her time. My job was simply to be worthy of whatever connection she felt able to offer. 3 years have passed since that terrible night when words spoken in anger shattered our world. 3 years of therapy growth, painful self-examination, and painfully slow reconciliation. The journey has been neither quick nor easy, but looking back, I can see how far we've both come from our lowest point. The rebuilding of our relationship began with those tentative text messages, gradually increasing in frequency and length. For nearly 6 months, our communication remained entirely electronic, a buffer that allowed Sophia control over when and how we interacted. I learned to measure my responses carefully, to respect her boundaries without appearing distant, to express love without suffocating her with emotional need. Our first face-to-face meeting happened at a coffee shop of Sophia's, choosing almost exactly 1 year after she left. She asked that Zoe be present as support, a request that stung, but that I completely understood. I arrived early, my heart racing so fast, I feared I might pass out before she arrived. When she finally walked through the door, the physical changes in her took my breath away. At 17, she looked older, more composed, her artistic style evident in her clothing choices and the new streak of blue in her hair. We sat across from each other like strangers, Zoe, a silent sentinel at Sophia's side. The conversation was awkward, halting nothing like the easy flow we had shared before. But we managed to speak for nearly an hour, carefully avoiding the most painful topics, focusing instead on neutral subjects, like school and her art development. It was during our third meeting this time, without Zoe present, that we finally addressed what happened. Sophia had prepared what she wanted to say, occasionally referencing notes on her phone. She described in devastating detail how my words had affected her. The nightmares they triggered, the way they confirmed her deepest fears that she was unwanted, a burden, a mistake. I listened without interruption, without defense, allowing her truth to exist fully, even as it broke my heart anew. When she finished, I took full responsibility. No excuses about stress, or Derek's influence or financial pressure. Just complete acknowledgement of the inexcusable harm I had caused. I shared what I had learned in therapy about my own unresolved trauma, not to justify my actions, but to assure her I was addressing the root issues that led to my outburst. What surprised me most about that conversation was Sophia's insight. Despite her youth, despite being the wounded party, she demonstrated remarkable emotional intelligence. "You didn't create your problems, but you made them mine," she told me. "I can understand where it came from without accepting that it was okay." From that painful but necessary conversation grew a new understanding between us. Not the unconditional mother-daughter bond we once shared, but something more cautious, more intentional. Sophia maintained her residence with the Wilson family until graduation, a decision I supported despite the ongoing ache of physical separation. She needed the stability they provided, and forcing her to return home would have been another act of selfishness. I continued my personal growth regardless of our reconciliation status. The commitment to therapy, sobriety, and healthier relationships wasn't contingent on Sophia's forgiveness. These changes needed to be for me sustainable, whether or not she ever fully returned to my life. This mindset shift was perhaps the most important development in my recovery. In the support group I joined during those early dark days, I eventually transitioned from new member to mentor. Sharing my experience with other parents in the raw, early stages of estrangement became a meaningful way to transform my pain into something useful. Each time I told my story, the shame lessened slightly, replaced by hope that others might avoid my mistakes or find their way back from similar ruptures. Sophia's high school graduation was a milestone I had once feared I would experience only as a distant observer. Instead, I received an actual invitation, though, with the understanding that I would sit separately from the Wilson family, who had been her day-to-day support. Watching her accept her diploma from the back of the auditorium, I felt a complex mixture of pride in her resilience and sadness for the time lost. After the ceremony, she introduced me to teachers who had supported her through the difficult transition, allowing me brief entry into the world she had created without me. The most meaningful moment in our ongoing reconciliation came unexpectedly. For a senior art project, Sophia created a triptych exploring the theme of forgiveness. When the exhibit opened, she texted me the date and time, an invitation that carried significant weight. Standing before her creation, I was overcome by the raw emotion captured in abstract form. 3 panels showing a progression from chaos and pain to something not quite whole, but healing, jagged edges softening. She stood beside me in silence, allowing me to absorb the artwork before quietly saying, "This about us." The fact that she could transform our painful experience into art spoke volumes about her emotional processing and strength. That she chose to share it with me felt like a gift I had done nothing to deserve, but would cherish nonetheless. Our relationship today exists in a new form, neither fully healed nor permanently broken. We maintain regular contact, share occasional meals, exchange texts about our daily lives. There remains a cautiousness between us moments when conversation falters around certain topics or memories. But there is also genuine warmth, laughter sometimes, and a deepening respect for each other as individuals rather than just roles. Sophia is now studying art at a state university with a strong program more affordable than Carnegie Mellon, but still excellent. She lives in the dorms, coming home to visit both me and the Wilson family during breaks. Amanda Wilson, once the woman I feared as my replacement, has become an unexpected ally. We are not friends exactly, but we share a genuine commitment to Sophia's well-being that transcends our complicated history. The most profound lesson I've learned through this ordeal is about the nature of unconditional love. Before, I thought it meant an unbreakable bond, a relationship that could withstand any storm. Now I understand it means loving without expectation or possession. It means supporting Sophia's independence and healing journey even when it doesn't include me. It means celebrating her growth even when it occurred in soil I didn't tend. The words I spoke that night will never disappear completely. They live in both our memories, a cautionary tale about the power of language to wound deeply those we love most. But they no longer define us entirely. They are part of our story, not its conclusion. I live with the choices I made, but I won't force reconciliation or rush Sophia's healing process. Some lessons must be lived through, rather than merely learned intellectually. The journey toward forgiveness happens at its own pace, not on any schedule I might prefer. For those watching who might recognize themselves in my story, either as the parent who spoke unforgivable words or the child who received them, I want you to know that healing is possible, though never guaranteed. The path forward requires unflinching honesty, professional help, and the courage to change deeply ingrained patterns. Most importantly, it requires respect for each person's individual journey through pain toward potential reconciliation. Have you ever said something in anger that you immediately wanted to take back? How did you handle the aftermath? I'd appreciate if you could share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of healing after family trauma. Remember that your words have power, both to wound and to heal. Choose them carefully, especially with those you love most. Thank you for listening to my story. May we all find peace with our past mistakes and courage to build healthier relationships moving forward.